Iskcon, 3rd Canto, Chapter 15, Text 46. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Yo, Natarito, Ridi, Gato, Pi, Dharmatmanam, Tvam, Yo Nuhita, Ridi Gato, Pi, Dharmatmanam, Tvam, So Daiva Nonayana Mulamanta Ruda. Yarye Vakarna Vivarena Guyam Gato Na. Pitranu Renita Raha Bavaru Bhavena. Yo Nridhita Ridigato Pitara Matnam Tvam. So Daiva Nodnayana Mulam Nantaradaha. Yarye Vakarna Vivarena Guyam Gato Naha. Pita Nuranita Raha Babadu Bhavena. Yo Nutita Ridugato Pidaratmanam Tvam. So Daivano Nayana Mulanam Anantaradaha. Yarye Vakarna Vivarena Guyam Gato Naha. Pita Nuvarnita Raha Bavaru Bhavena. Others?
Yom Tardito Ridigato Pituratmanam Tvam.
Yom Tardito Ridigato Pituratmanam Tvam.
Sodyayvano Nayanamula Manantaratha.
Sodyayvano Nayanamula Manantaratha.
Yarhe Vakarna Vivarena Gruham Gatona.
Yarhe Vakarna Vivarena Gruham Gatona.
Pitra Nurvarnitaraha Bhavarudbhavena.
Itra Nurvarnitaraha Bhavarudbhavena.
Yom Tarhito Ridigato Piduratmanam Tvam.
Yom Tardito Ridigato Pituratmanam Tvam.
Sudyaivanam Nayanamulam Anantaradhaha.
Sodaivano Nayanamula Manantaratha.
Eva Karna Vivarena Guham Gato Naha.
Yardeva Karna Vivarena Gruham Gatona.
Tranuvarnitaraha Bhavadutpavena.
Yom Tarito Ridigato Piduratmanam Tvam.
Yom Tardito Ridigato Pituratmanam Tvam.
Sudyayavano Nayanamulam Anantarada.
Sodyayavano Nayanamula Manantaratha.
Yarye Vakarna Vivarena Guham Gatona.
Yarhe Vakarna Vivarena Gruham Gatona.
Pitra Nuvarnitaraha Bhavadutpavena.
Itra Nurvarnitaraha Bhavarudbhavena.
Kumara Ucha The Kumara said,
Ya,
Ya, he who, Antarhita, not manifested, Riddhi, in the heart, Kata, is seated, Api, even though, Duratmanam, to the rascals, Tvam, you, Saha, he, Adya, today, Eva, certainly, Na, of us, Nayana Mulam, face to face, Ananta, O unlimited one, Radha, attain, Yarhi, when, Eva, certainly, Karna Vivarena, through the ears, Guyam, intelligence, Kataha, have attained, Naha, our, Pitra, by our father, Anuvaraneta, described, Raha, mysteries, Bhavat Ubavrena, by your appearance. Translation. The Kumaras said, our dear Lord, you're not manifested to rascals, even though you're seated in the heart of everyone. But as far as we are concerned, we see you face to face, although you are unlimited. The statements we have heard about you from our father, Brahma, through the ears have now been actually realized by your kind appearance. The Kumaras said, our dear Lord, you are not manifested to the rascals, even though you are seated within the heart of everyone. But as far as we are concerned, we see you face to face, although you are unlimited. The statements we've heard about you from our father, Brahma, through the ears, have now been actually realized by your kind appearance. Purport. The so-called yogis who concentrate their mind or meditate upon the impersonal or void are described here. This verse of Srumad Bhagavatam describes persons who are expected to be very expert yogis engaged in meditation, but who do not find the personality of Godhead seated within the heart. These persons are described here as Duratma, which means a person who has a very crooked heart, or a less intelligent person, just opposite to Mahatma, which means one who has a broad heart. Those so-called yogis who, although engaged in meditation, are not broad-hearted, cannot find the four-handed Narayan form, even though he is seated within their heart. Although the first realization of absolute truth is impersonal Brahman, one should not remain satisfied with experiencing the impersonal effulgence of the Supreme Lord. In the Ishopanishad, also, the devotee prays that the glaring effulgence of Brahman may be removed from his eyes, so that he can see the real, personal feature of the Lord, and thus satisfy himself fully. Similarly, although the Lord is not visible in the beginning because of his glaring bodily effulgence, if a devotee sincerely wants to see him, the Lord is revealed to him. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord cannot be seen by imperfect eyes. He cannot be heard by our imperfect ears, and he cannot be experienced by our imperfect senses. But if one engages in devotional service with faith and devotion, then God reveals himself. Here, the four sages, Sanatan Kumara, Sanatan, Sanandanan, and Sanat are described as actually sincere devotees. Although they heard from their father Brahma about the personal feature of the Lord, only the impersonal feature of Brahman was revealed to them. But because they were sincerely searching for the Lord, they finally saw his personal feature directly, which corresponded with the description given by their father. They thus became fully satisfied. Here, they expressed their gratitude, because although they were foolish impersonalists in the beginning, by the grace of the Lord, they could now have the good fortune to see his personal feature. Another significant aspect of this verse is that the sages describe their experience of hearing from their father Brahma, who was born of the Lord directly. In other words, his civic succession from the Lord to Brahma, and from Brahma to Narada, and from Narada to Vyas, and so on, is accepted here. Because the Kumaras were sons of Brahma, they had the opportunity to learn Vedic knowledge from the civic succession of Brahma. And therefore, in spite of their impersonal beginnings, they became, in the end, direct seers of the personal features of the Lord. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Nitasman Shri Guru Maha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Shapitam Mena Bhutale Swayamrupakara Magnam Taranti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sarvagnatam Tam Sajivam Sabhadvetam Sabhrutam Krishna Sitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padaha Sadanalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Kruna Sindhu Dina Bandal Jagapate Gopi Shak Gopi Kanta Radha Kanta Namasate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Manam Nishre Vrishabhana Sudhi Devi Hari Pranami Hari Pre Vancha Kalpachi Vischa Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Pitanam Pavnibro Vaishnavu Namo Namaha. So, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to Srumad Bhagavatam class. From hearing the words of the pure devotee, we can all make advancements. And I'd like to welcome Vaikuntha coming here today. He's been a devotee a long time, born into the movement, and he's come here to grace us with his presence, so we appreciate him being here. So, here we see in this verse is that the understanding of the civic succession. That the four Kumaras, even though that their father was Lord Brahma, had the grace of Lord Brahma, but innocently came up with the wrong conclusion of the Lord, But once they had the darshan of the Lord, they fully understood this. That's we understand that there's two types of classes of impersonalists. In the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about there's the innocent impersonalist and the envious impersonalists. And this idea is that there are many people that, without having contact with Vedic knowledge, on their own, they try to speculate. What is the absolute truth? Who am I? Where am I going? This is a very common question that people, particularly when they're younger, they think about. Like, what is the goal of life? How do I become really happy? Will this world actually bring real satisfaction? And so people think very deeply about this subject matter, and they may come to conclusions about the world around them. Because I think I stated in previous class, we understand even the Greek philosophers, this is what they did on a daily basis. That even though they had no contact with Vedic knowledge, they were trying to think deeply about their existence. And the closest person, as one may say, if you could compare Vedic knowledge, would be someone like, say, Socrates or Plato. That they came up with this understanding, and then they came actually very quite close. And they talked about divisions of society. They understood that there was something higher than what they were experiencing. And they understood that there are, as they described, that there are actually perfect forms in a higher dimension, and that the material world that they were in was just a reflection of that. But they didn't come totally to the proper conclusion, the Vedic conclusion, that God is a person. But still, it's pretty good considering they had no experience with Vedic knowledge. And so this is very important because we find many aspects within society that within modern day society, particularly in America, the idea is to develop economic development. That the goal of life is to acquire lots of material power, get a good job, have a nice family, have the white picket fence, and whoever dies with the most toys, it becomes successful. But we can understand, and this disaster idea of capitalism within America, that it doesn't really bring real satisfaction to people. They become more frustrated, more so than ever. It actually, instead of becoming the American dream, it becomes the American nightmare. As we see, more people are more dissatisfied with their lives. So we should understand from this is that real satisfaction can never come from any material arrangement. That you can have everything in this world, but yet still be unsatisfied. And we see this time and time again. So the next conclusion would be that the actually intelligent person would say is that if this material world is not going to bring me real happiness, then what will? And the problem with that is that oftentimes people don't take that further. They just decide that let me take some type of intoxication, let me engage in some sense gratification, let me get a nice mate, let me have nice clothing, let me have a nice car, all these things, and they keep going after the same material thing, thinking that it will be different. And if they change their material situation, then things will be better. Okay, well, it didn't work in this relationship, so let me find this relationship. And they can continue to go on and on. So we understand this is Duratma, a crippled-minded person, a very foolish person. So we understand that people that are trying to find great satisfaction in the material world through the senses are very foolish. And that the intelligent person understands that if I can't find real satisfaction in material life, then what brings real satisfaction? And this is what's come to this point. So we can also understand that even within those two types of transcendentalists, there's the one type that's just innocent, he doesn't know any better, but he's inquiring. But then there's the other type that is envious. So you see, this is more common in India, say the traditionalist impersonalists. But even in America, we have kind of the impersonalists, right? It's in a kind of a different age, and you can run into this into like the New Age circles, right? There's a particular New Age is developed, that was kind of developed within, I guess, the late 60s to 70s, and so it's a big thing now. And everybody has all kinds of speculations of what things are. And then many people promote this idea that I can become God, right? That, and this is very popular within that realm, but we understand that if one really thinks about it, it's kind of like one of those things that people really say, like it's all good or it's all one, and you're God and I'm God and all these particular things. And it's kind of like one of those things, as they say, there's a term called soothsayers, right? And there's these particular type of class of people that they walk around and they say, they use kind of spiritual terms, they may say yoga or meditation or karma and things of this nature. And it sounds kind of like, and they may dress in a particular way, and it sounds kind of very mystical and kind of cool. But when you really think about the particular things they may be saying, and you think about it deeply, it doesn't really add up. Because how can one actually be God, right? We accept the terminology or the idea that God is all great, God is all good, and he's omnipotent, he can do anything. And for someone to say that I'm God, it's considered one of the biggest offenses, right? Like even Prabhupada, you'll notice through reading throughout Prabhupada's books, he's very heavy on this point. He's actually very heavy on two particular groups of people. He's very heavy with the scientists, and he's also very heavy with the impersonalists. And he condemns this very much so. And it's very important to note because this is it's kind of a sign of envy, right? That one is trying to pretend to be God in a particular way. And that Krishna gives everyone what they want, right? If you want to be God, then okay, you come to the material world and try to be God. And then oftentimes people may say this, right? They may say, it's all good, we're all one, I'm you, you are me, but it doesn't really hold up very much if you really think about it or analyze it in a very deep sense. If one is God, then why does one have to go to the bathroom? If one is God, why does one have to work a job? If one is God, what is there need to acquire anything material, right? Because God has all these things. God's unlimited. So it doesn't, even if you really think about it in a rational sense, it doesn't really add up. But unfortunately, we live in a society that people don't think very deeply about things. That's the problem is that we're, in society, is that we're just so distracted in so many particular ways. And the internet is a great example of this, right? We have this social media where you can go on Facebook and think, well, I'll just go on there for 15 minutes and it's like 3 hours later. And one can get caught up with all the particular type of media. And it's very interesting, even within society, whatever, I guess, political camp that you choose, whether it's conservative or liberal or independent in that particular choice, is that oftentimes people can't think properly on what the actual truth is. And that people come from what's called a cognitive bias, right? That whenever you have particular beliefs or someone that's been raised in a particular culture, they base their beliefs on that. And they can't really see outside of that. So anything that they're looking through for the truth, is based on their particular bias that they may have about life and society. But one of the best things is to destroy that bias that we may have, that in proper thinking of seeing things, is to see the doubts within that bias that one may have. So particularly we find here that as this impersonal idea is the greatest offense that one can commit. That one saying that he's God, when that, according to the Vedas, that God is all-knowing and all-perfect. And it's described here. As we know that the four Kumaras, they were very innocent in their understanding, this impersonal understanding, but once they came to the truth, they came to accept this. And that the gatekeepers of Jai and Vijay, that they actually, after they had made their mistake, they have this choice to choose, and they choose to take 3 lifetimes to become inimical or in the play of demons, because they wanted just to return and engage in devotional service to the Lord. And so this is what they chose. And we also see in this purport is talking about this civic succession, right? We understand that the civic succession coming from Lord Brahma to the present day, from Srila Prabhupada, and what we follow is that Prabhupada will often say that, people have praised Prabhupada, you've done so much, you've brought these teachings to America and all over the world. And Prabhupada was a very humble, pure devotee, in the sense that he said, if I've done anything right, is that I've done nothing to change the message, right? I've just let this message come from down from this Brahma Sampradaya, this Guru Sampradaya, to unchanged, no additions and no subtractions. So similarly in the same way, that all success is there if we simply understand the Vedas as they are, as Prabhupada has given us. And this is actually very unique in a sense too, because just reading Vedic knowledge without the help of a realized personality may be in many ways misinterpreted it. So, and Prabhupada was very unique in putting Iskcon together, that he put Iskcon together in such a way that Western people could take to it very easily. And that Prabhupada was very merciful in this understanding. And that is why it's so important that one stay within Iskcon. There are other, even with the Gaudiya Math, there are other Gaudiya Maths that have come after Srila Prabhupada. But what's so important is that Prabhupada has given us this particular knowledge in such a way that we can advance in spiritual knowledge. And other Gaudiya Maths have something to offer, but not in the same way that Srila Prabhupada has. Other Gaudiya Maths have tried to spread Krishna consciousness. They've done some, to a certain degree, they've been have some success, but nothing in comparison to Iskcon. And so, therefore, we should understand that we should stay within the context of Iskcon because this is Srila Prabhupada's heart and soul. And by actually pleasing Srila Prabhupada, we stay faithful to this Iskcon process. And this Iskcon process is to chant 16 rounds, follow the principles, and continually give Krishna to others. And so we can make so much advancement in this particular Krishna consciousness. So we understand that this is meditating on the forms, that the four Kumars were meditating on the form of the Lord. And that by meditating on this form of the Lord, they actually came to understand the ultimate truth of Krishna. And that a real success in Krishna consciousness is to continually engage in this process of hearing, chanting, remembering, and hearing this process of devotional service. That as within this purport, we see that this sampradaya, or this idea of falling within the sampradaya, is very important. That we continually make advancement on meditating and following the instructions. And this is where we make great advancement. And oftentimes, what's very popular, particularly nowadays, is there's like the yoga circuit in one sense, right? There's many people that practice yoga, and yoga is very good to take care of the body, but oftentimes there's philosophies that come along with that sometimes that people don't quite understand. Patanjali is very interesting yoga practice in the sense that they teach the asanas and the yoga practice, but philosophically, in one sense, it's very impersonal. They say that one can become God in one way. And so oftentimes innocent people aren't aware of this, and they pick this up. So it's good that we meet these particular type of people that are engaged in the yoga process by attracting them through the philosophy. And by attracting the people through the philosophy is the practice of this Krishna consciousness, is that people become so attracted by people that are engaged in Krishna consciousness. And so for the devotee, one has to continue to engage and showing this example, by coming to the morning program, by following basically the basics of Krishna consciousness, and then all success is there. That we can understand that this was, as I said before, that this is the success of the process of actually living Srumad Bhagavatam. Srumad Bhagavatam isn't meant just to hear it in the morning and to listen and to get some realization and understanding. It's actually meant to be practiced. And that we may have particular material desires, and that's fine, and we have to kind of work with where we're at, right? We may have particular material desires, and the point is that if we have particular material desires and we haven't come up to the standard of Srimad Bhagavatam, the point is that we should stick with this process, particularly within Iskcon, so we can purify ourselves and make gradual advancement. So this is why we have the Varnashram system, that we understand that we may have particular desires, so it's not that we artificially renounce them, but we have to be sincere in our efforts and authentic in who we are. So we may have particular material desires, and so the Varnashram system is what helps us get through this. So, typically many people they may live in a temple for some time, and they learn the process of Krishna consciousness, and ultimately most people may move out of the ashram to where they enter the grihastha ashram, where they get married and have families and things of that nature. This is fine. But when one enters that particular ashram, it should be understood that I'm experiencing these particular things for the purification of my Krishna consciousness. Is that I should be within this ashram so I can make gradual, steady advancements. Sometimes you've seen within Iskcon that they have what's called the shooting stars, right? We find there are particular devotees that did amazingly wonderful things, They may distribute lots of books. They may do many great services, but they weren't able to last and they left. But we should understand that no amount of devotional service that someone's engaged in is to their eternal benefit. So similarly, we have to see where we're at, be authentic with ourselves, but at the same time try to push ourselves more than where we're at. It's kind of like a balance. It's kind of like if you're working out at a gym, right? If you lift something that's too heavy, you're going to hurt yourself. But if you lift something that's too light, then it's not going to be much benefit. So similarly, we should gradually try to add more weight of advancing Krishna consciousness. That we have to push ourselves to a certain degree so we can make gradual advancement. And that when this purification comes, we can actually understand things as they are. As we see in the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about particular modes of energy, and we understand there's activities in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And that even learned personalities, scholars and very thoughtful people, academics, they may have great skills in discerning particular things or ideas, but they're in a particular mode, right? They may be engaged in intoxicants or meat eating and these particular things. So, and in one sense, they can understand things from an intellectual point of view, but they don't really have a realized idea of this. That sometimes we can find this even in the scientific field of knowledge. We understand that there are many, in one sense you could say some scientists are almost jnanis in the sense is that they have incredible intelligence to develop amazing things. But it's used improperly in the wrong way. And that it's not, and even for them, even if you talk about, say, even mundane things like morality, they will say something like, all of morality is a subjective idea, right? Meaning that there is no really right or wrong, it's only what you feel about what's right or wrong. And if you really think about it, is that actually true? I mean, is there actually nothing that's right or wrong, it's just based on how you think about things? Of course not. I mean, ultimately, we all have a sense of right and wrong, even before we come to Krishna consciousness. And we may be covered over in a particular way, but everyone has a particular understanding of right and wrong. And that is it, they may say, well, according to certain cultures, people have different ideas about right and wrong. But if one really critically actually analyzes and thinks about this, do we really even think that's true? Do we try to become politically... Jai Shri Shri.
Jai Shri Pata Ki.
Do we try to become politically correct, not being able to critically think or see things that are wrong? I mean, do we really think that taking people's, say, rights away is a right thing? Like, say, someone that is, do we think that women should be forced to do things that they don't particularly want to do? But in particular cultures, that may be simply accepted, and some maybe relativists may say that, oh, that's a perfectly fine thing to do. So the idea is that we have to have a critical mind in the sense of seeing things as they are and be able to point out things that are right or wrong. But for certain scientists, they may say that there is no right and wrong, it's just what you particularly believe that is right or wrong. And so what's wonderful about Vedic knowledge is that it points out what is right and what is wrong, and act accordingly to that. And so sometimes those arguments may come sometimes, that, someone may say something like, meat eating is really not wrong, it's according to your particular culture. No, if we can understand whatever culture you come from, bringing harm to another living being is not right. And so we should be able to be critical of really bad ideas. But particularly in America, there's this idea of politically correctness that you can't really criticize anything or bad ideas from certain cultures. But according to the knowledge we have in Vedic knowledge, it gives us how to actually analyze things as they are. And Prabhupada was very, as you may say, very unpolitically correct in many ways. And that's what I liked about Srila Prabhupada, is that he was very poignant, even when he would criticize particular things. You know, obviously, Prabhupada is the pure devotee. He has no envy in his heart. And he's able to do this properly. And it's not necessarily that something we want to do as a habit, but we have to develop our intelligence in such a way so we can see things as they are and reject them as they come. And this is the point that we should understand, that anyone that is giving this idea, this impersonal idea of the Lord is very foolish, as Prabhupada describes here. Now, someone may be innocent, so we have to deal with that person accordingly, and we do it in a very gentle way of giving them proper understanding. And that's by just reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and then ultimately people will come to that understanding. So herein, that we should understand that this knowledge is given to us here is to be lived and to be understood, and to practice properly. And then we will get this purification where we will understand things as they are. So is there any questions or comments? Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Jai.